All right, it seems like it has slowed down a little bit, so why don't we go ahead and get started? And if anybody else hops in the waiting room, I will let them in as soon as we can. So this morning's call, we've had some background conversations about workforce and labor shortages and adaptations that businesses have had to make in New Hampshire. And the group had expressed an interest in hearing from an HR professional sort of in relation to those things. So this morning we're joined by Todd Fernald. Todd is a director of Exeter at Rye, which is a senior living community, as well as the president of the Seacoast Human Resources Association. And he's here this morning to speak with us and be part of our conversation. I'm also going to be handing things, a lot of the facilitation this morning, over to Natalie and Nancy, both of whom are doing some more related planning work for our long range plan on these issues. So they're going to be helping to keep that conversation going. So Todd, good morning and welcome.
Hey, thank you very much for having me.
So, I can sort of step back from here, but do you want to just take a couple of minutes to introduce yourself and, sort of the hats that you wear?
Sure. So good morning, everyone. As James said, my name is Todd Fernald, and I am the Administrator and Human Resources Director for Webster at Rye. Webster is one of the only nonprofit standalone facilities that's left in the Seacoast area that's not part of a corporate corporation or having sister facilities or chains. We are completely 100% independent, governed by our own board of trustees. I've actually been with the company 34 years. I started when I was a teenager in high school, working in the kitchen, doing dishes, and some dietary aid work. I then did some relief cooking. I then was moved up and I started the working part-time as a social services assistant. And I started the activities program at the time that was in our independent retirement community. I then got moved into the position of the receptionist. I then became the office assistant, then I was the executive assistant, and then I took over HR here in 2005. Became the assisted living administrator in 2017. In 2018, I received my licensure as an actual nursing home administrator, and then I took over as the administrator for the entire facility last year, officially last February of 2021. I've been involved with the Seacoast Human Resource Association, I don't know, the last 8 or 9 years, probably. Attending the meetings, and then I started working on the professional development committee, and we're the committee that meets to determine what all the programming is for each of our meetings, obtains the speakers, the program sponsors. So we work together on that. And then I was tapped to be the vice president of SHRA in the fall of 2019, and I had no sooner assumed that position and the president left. So I ended up having to step up, take over, finish her term before my actual official term ended. So I'm actually done being the official president in June of this year, and then I'll move into a past president role, which I'll serve on the board for the next 2 years in that capacity. So that's kind of my long and sordid history of how I got to where I am. If you had asked the 17-year-old boy who came in and got a summer job, who frankly hated old people, and my mom got me the job in the nursing home behind my back. If you had asked that person and said, back then, oh, you're going to be running the organization, I totally would have laughed and or run out the door. So it's just kind of funny to think that, 3.5 decades later, here I am. So don't let anyone say the American dream is dead, because you can clearly go through the ranks. So that's about me. So I don't know what you have for questions or what you want me to speak about, so we'll just go for the ride and see what happens.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Todd, and welcome. So just to get us started, I think we were hoping to hear a little bit about what some of the current trends are around business growth, relocation, or just in general, just hiring workers. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Okay. Yeah, this has been like unlike anything that I have ever seen doing HR and the world has ever seen. The thing that strikes me the most in talking with people is the fact that when the pandemic hit, we all know that every single industry, we've all experienced labor shortages. But as things have got back to normal, as unemployment benefits have ended, no one came back. So it's almost like 5 million people were removed from the world. And I'm not exactly sure where they went. And I hear this from a lot of my colleagues and stuff like that. There's no sector that has seen an influx of people. We all can say we have people that we've never seen come back, but no sector is reporting a massive influx of people coming in. So I don't know where all these people went. And it really is a big, kind of a big mystery. We are all facing the same issues as far as recruiting right now goes. We're all competing with each other. I can speak, working in healthcare right now alone, I have 24 full-time open L&A positions. As a general rule, I normally would run anywhere between 4, 5, 6 at any given moment in time. But I've got, 24, and that's just L&As alone. That wasn't including, housekeeping or dietary or nurses or activities or all of the other positions that, you're struggling to find as well. I can't really speak that much to like a relocation because we only have one facility. So, but I know there are people, and again, prior to the pandemic, and I have people myself that live anywhere, I can name some employees that live, an hour and a half away, and they have always been commuting. They like working for us, and this was a good fit for them. So they've made that commute. But frankly, I'm terrified now with the gas prices that am I going to start losing those people because it's just not economical for them to continue with this kind of a commute and kind of a drive. As far as that, it's really an employee market right now, as far as they can basically go and interview, A, B, and C, and then come back and say, here are my options, which is the most lucrative or the best one for me. And then suddenly we find that we're going out and we're trying to compete. We're trying to go ahead and win so-and-so back. So I'm paying much higher wages now than I did, before the pandemic started. I have, case in point, I have a employee that, was making, right around, $21.50 an hour roughly. She just graduated with her bachelor's degree in healthcare administration. She's like, my desire is to stay with you because if I can't use my degree, I need to move on. I totally respect that. I totally get that. So we figured out a position, we created something for her, and I basically say, based on your position, for example, an administrative kind of a role, you would be looking at, that kind of those upper 20s. That's where an administrative assistant, healthcare would kind of fall in. And we have a very good relationship with her, and we had a really good dialogue. And she said, I need you to know, I've already interviewed 2 other places and I have a $38 offer on the table. So now so we negotiated and, came up with a $32. She said, I'm willing to stay for you if you can pay me 32. All right, I'll do it because I don't want to lose her. And she's really, really good. But that's nothing that I would normally be paying. So the amount of people in the last 2 years, especially, that have had to come to my office and say, I've interviewed, here's my offer from the other facility. I'm willing to stay, but you've got to match it or beat it. And I think, in healthcare, and then I'm sure in a lot of different sectors that you all work in as well, you're probably seeing the exact same thing. You know, that the businesses, I mean, we're all losing money in the pandemic anyway, but even more so because now we're fighting to save employees and recruit them and do whatever we can to get them to stay and not lose the ones that we have. So it's really hot mess, I think, would be the best description right now for everybody. So I don't know if that answers your question, Natalie.
Definitely. No, thank you. All very interesting information, Todd. I should have said this before, but to all of the attendees on the call, please feel free to raise your hands or drop any questions in the chat. I do see that Warren has his hand raised, and then we have James afterwards. I think Warren might have lowered his hand, but I'll hand it off to you, James.
I was muted, sorry.
Oh, okay.
No, I lowered my hand and I did not unmute. My bad, sorry. Thank you, Todd, for that. Certainly, one of the last things you said was that businesses are not making any money. I work for the New Hampshire Small Business Development Center. I'm a business advisor in the Seacoast, and we help small businesses every day. There are a lot of businesses, small businesses, that came through the pandemic and are doing quite well for various reasons. And they're making money and they're growing and expanding. And this is, to me, really a growing economy. So you said you don't know where people went. Well, baby boomers, you know, there's the great resignation. So a lot of people said, you know what, I'm out of here. I am not going to work through the pandemic. I'm a senior, and if I can't work at home and be safe, I'm leaving. So we have the great resignation. We have the lack of affordable daycare. So when there were two-person incomes, now many times there's a one-person income. And you're right, we lost over 5 million workers in this country, and probably in this state alone, tens of thousands of people. We're still 20,000 employees below pre-recession. And this lack of available workforce predates COVID. We were feeling this back in 2019 when the economy was still humming. We also have a lack of affordable housing. So, you know, people have to come from north of Rochester, travel to Portsmouth, and that's exacerbated by, like you said, Todd, the increase in the travel costs and the increase in inflation. My solution to clients that I help are multifold. Number one, what is your price elasticity? How can you be a player and a leader in your industry in attracting workers? Yes, you might have to offer more. You might have to offer a signing bonus. You might have to offer a bonus to those employees who help you find somebody. But how elastic is your price? And can you continue to generate profits with these higher costs? And I'll stop there.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, and a lot of what you said, Warren, I mean, I totally agree with you. I think, you know, being nonprofits is certainly challenging as it is. We do offer, you know, we do have a referral bonus programs here. So we increase people's wages if they refer someone and they're hired. We do that. We have longevity bonuses as far as recruitment. I mean, as far as retention goes, that we're offering those every year at people's anniversary dates, you know, $50 a year for every year that they have been with the company. So I do actually have a lot of longevity at Webster, which is nice. So people get some significant bonuses. And I have fought to keep that during COVID and all of that. So I know there's a lot of places who are doing sign-on bonuses. To be perfectly honest, we did do sign-on bonuses for quite a while, but the people that we hired, there wasn't really any difference in the amount of people we hired with or without the bonus. which I thought was interesting, because usually you thought that would be something that would do it. And the reason that we did away with that was the fact that I had my long-term employees were basically saying, you're willing to bring somebody in and give them, higher wages or higher, a sign-on bonus. What about those of us who have been here all along? And I don't disagree with that. I totally understand that. So that was the reason we went away and we did with that. I think being in healthcare, it's a very unique situation right now, because being in a nursing home and healthcare facility, we were ground zero for COVID. And while everybody had to learn how to basically work from home and redo how to do business on Zoom or thinking different ways to do stuff, this entire industry was rewritten overnight. It has not gone back to being the same. It will never go back to being the same. The fun fact for the day is nursing home healthcare is the most regulated industry, second only to nuclear power. If that gives you any idea of the amount of what we have to do on a daily basis. And if you go through and you look at our rules and regulations, I kid you not, the book is about this thick and it's all about a 6 or 8 font with what there is we have to do. And every day, the regulations that keep changing. And in fact, yesterday, this week, CMS announced, they're lifting mask mandates, which I think is terrific. They're changing a lot of things and kind of making sure things are kind of getting back to normal. Obviously, healthcare lags behind that. But despite the fact that I have 100% vaccination rate of residents, 100% vaccination rate of boosters, CMS just announced that we have to go back into weekly testing based on this your county transmission rate. New Hampshire substantial transmission, I'm back to testing staff twice a week. This is ludicrous for me, because we just took a step back in the time machine. So these are all the things that I kind of fight with on a day-to-day basis. Right now. And I can say, no, we're not a business right now that has rebounded or recovered whatsoever. I'm losing hundreds of thousands of dollars a month at this point, and I have since the pandemic began, because CMS has put regulations in place. You have to have so many rooms reserved for COVID. If you have people coming in before the vaccinations, anyone admitted was an automatic 14-day quarantine. They had to have a private room. So we were forced to take, like all of our rooms, our census, and basically say these are no longer semi-private rooms. They have to be privates for potential COVID cases. And we had to take X number of rooms out of commission. And now, so every day, like there's some new reg that prevents us. And assisted living, for example, if you move into a nursing home, 9 times out of 10, it's because of crisis situation. Assisted living is a choice. But when you move into an assisted living facility and you're saying, oh, by the way, we're closed, we're locked down, you can't visit in person, everyone stopped moving in. So then suddenly you find yourself with 24 empty apartments that you didn't have. So, all of those things have, for us, healthcare is just in a very unique situation. I do not know one healthcare facility that I have talked to right now that is not in the same spot. In fact, that's why a lot of them are closing, a lot of them are selling. Or merging into corporate chains, because it's the only way that they're able to survive or whatnot. So it's just unprecedented days is trying to figure out how to just kind of keep things going. I see in the chat, CMS is the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. That's a federal government that covers people in nursing homes that are coming in for skilled care, or people that have spent down below a certain threshold. They have no assets, they have no money. Then the Medicaid is what pays for them to be here. That's a federal requirement. New Hampshire has its own Medicaid program, but it all falls under CMS. CMS is kind of the regulating body for healthcare, for nursing homes, for skilled rehab facilities. They are the ones that conduct surveys. They are the ones that whatever rule the government makes, as long as CMS adopts it, we have to follow it, whether it helps us or harms us. We're locked into CMS regs.
James, do you still have a question?
Yeah, I've got a couple, but I guess since we got on the healthcare track, I'll ask this one. Yeah, I was listening to an NPR story sometime last week. I think it was probably All Things Considered, about how state licensure boards from nurses, and I assume a LNA would probably need some sort of licensure from them too. You have a huge backlog, and they aren't processing quickly enough so that fully qualified nurses who just need their piece of paper, whether it's because they got through school and they need their paperwork done, or they've moved and they need to get licensed in a different state, they can't work until that backlog is cleared. And it seemed like some of the worst ones were like out in California, but I was wondering if you had experienced that in New Hampshire, if that's a problem going on here too.
Yeah, we definitely experienced it because apparently, COVID didn't spare the government either, and they had a lot of people that left positions as well. The big challenge for healthcare is that besides a licensure piece, there are a lot of more hoops to jump through as far as background checks, what we're required to do. Whether it's the state criminal background checks, the Bureau of Elderly Protective Adult Services, there's the Office of Inspector General. So the whole list of things that we have to do. There was a very big backlog, and what usually originally took up to 7 days was taking more like 4 weeks to get background checks back. That was problematic because I can name some situations where we had people that had come apply for jobs, but because the background checks took so long, they basically said, I'm not waiting, I'm going to go do another job instead. And we lost them because they were in the pipeline. And that was really, really frustrating. New Hampshire has gotten much better with that. They changed some stuff around to get the background checks. So the average turnaround time right now is about 5 or 6 days in order to get everything back, which is a lot better. And that certainly has helped. New Hampshire also was backlogged, and it was taking forever to get people's licenses through as well through the nursing registry. They also recently just added a category. It's now called, I believe it's called restricted. So if I see someone's restricted pop up, it basically means that in a basic definition, the first pass through, everything looks fine. They don't have the final paperwork yet, but they're giving them a restricted license to be able to start working while they go ahead and finish everything up. And then once everything is there, then I see the license flip from restricted to active.
Thank you. Did you have another question, James, or are you good?
Yeah, I can keep going. So yeah, as you were talking through your career trajectory, I was thinking, man, that's a great example of employee retention. And like you said, when you started at 17, 18, had no idea that this was going to be your career. So I guess what made you stay, and what made you want to keep taking that next position and that next position? And how has that experience, I guess, shaped your approach to employee retention?
I think some of it originally was kind of accidental or happy circumstance. So I basically worked here my junior and senior years in high school. And then I left. I mean, I was in the kitchen, and I remember they gave me a going away party off to college, and I walked out the door assuming that was it. And then I got a random phone call over Thanksgiving from my boss in the kitchen at the time, and who said, hey, would you be willing to come back and work over the Thanksgiving holiday? I could use the help. I have a few open shifts. And I actually had brought a friend home from college that weekend. And I said, look, I can't because I've got somebody here, but if you want me to do the same thing for Christmas, I'd be happy to. So that's kind of how we left it. And the summer before I went to college, one of the cooks, I was actually working that day, she had suffered a bad burn during working. And my first semester in college, she actually had been out on workers' comp. And right around the time Christmas rolled around, they were bringing her back to work, but the positions were filled. So they actually had to create kind of a part-time 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. kind of position for her. For workers' comp. And then my boss said, well, if I'm doing it 5 days a week, it really needs to be 7 days a week, because you can't create a position for 5 days. The staff gets used to it. And then 2 days a week, you say, oh, we just don't have this today. So he reached out to me. I was only an hour away in Massachusetts at my school. And he had said, if I do this, would you be willing to come home and work the weekends here, take the weekend shift to offset her? And I thought, yeah, I'm only an hour away. And it also, I needed money for school, for my car, for insurance, for books, for all that sort of stuff. And it seemed like a win, because then also when it came to summers, I wasn't scrambling for a job. I already had one. So I did that. And then I commuted the next 3.5 years every single weekend from school. I think with the exception of one, I came home every single weekend, worked, and it got to the point where I would just come in on the Saturday, they'd leave me a voicemail. Here are all the shifts you're working over the course of the weekend, people knew when my school breaks were, summer breaks were, they would all take vacations knowing I was home, and I would fill in all of those shifts. So it actually worked out really, really well. When I graduated from college, my degree's in psychology, and I had a minor in youth ministries. And I really thought I wanted to go into, therapy or working with kids or something like that. And I would interview for jobs, but because I didn't have experience, nobody wanted to, bring somebody in and train them or work with them, even though I was like, I knew I could do stuff, and I would probably be good at it. I just couldn't get in anywhere. And I was really, really discouraged. And I just said, well, I'm just going to continue to work here and try to figure things out. And it was the time the social worker, they decided they wanted to do some more, give her a little assistance, start an activity program. And luckily, because I had a college education, graduated, was a, kind of a go-getter, independent, that sort of stuff. The administrator, kind of said, would you be interested in kind of working half in the kitchen and half with her? And I said, sure. And that's kind of where it started. Little did I know at that point in time, as I kept moving my way through the ranks, that the administrator, who's the CEO today, basically said he saw in me years ago something that he wanted to tap into. And he basically, every time there was a promotion or a new position that kind of get created, as he said, it was kind of dangling the carrot. So I'd be like, oh, here's a new challenge. Here's something else I could do. Because he said his ultimate goal at the time was, he knew I would be great doing HR. And he just had to kind of keep the trail of me kind of following along until he could get the HR person we had, who was really kind of like a glorified payroll clerk, was basically all they did. Got to the point where she wanted to retire. And the second she gave her notice that she was retiring, I was in his office within an hour being offered the position. And then that's kind of how that track started. And then I just I basically had to create the whole department from scratch, because there was no really any policies, procedures, anything. And then kind of became and then as I was kind of following that track, then he kind of realized, actually, here's somebody who then he started to see, this will be my successor. And then that kind of became that administrative track. So a lot of it was right place, right time. And a lot of it was also, I think, just who I was, my background, and what I brought to the table. And, I know it's very unusual to have a 34-year career anywhere, especially somebody my age, so I think it says, to me, also says a lot about the company. It is like family. I can't think of a better place to work. I've been very happy, very comfortable. Even on the bad days, I go back home and reflect, they're not that bad. So I think the other part of your question, James, was I think it makes me good at what I do in HR and good as being an administrator and leader here because I came through the ranks. It's not it's not a leader who was dropped in. And we've probably all had those experiences of a leader, a department head, manager. They come right in, drop in, and then they kind of try to change everything to meld them versus kind of changing their style a little bit to fit the company culture. I am the company culture because it's all I know. It was ingrained in me. So I think that has kind of helped too, that as this is the CEO administrator, I mean, he's been here for 35, 36 years. He'll be officially retiring next year. I think it's gone a long way in helping the staff and the managers as well be more comfortable with a transition because it's someone they've worked alongside with. They know who I am. They know my expectation. I'm a different leader than Tom is. And that's okay. But I think it's kind of helped that they still feel it's part of the same team. And I always joke with staff too and say, and also makes me really good at HR because you can't get away with anything because I've already tried it. Whether, the punching a time clock or writing hours or this, that, or the other, I've probably tried it at some point. So I'm intuitively know what to look at.
Thank you. Can I sort of zoom out a little bit and ask you more about what you're hearing from your colleagues? It's SRA, right?
Yep.
Sort of what is the bigger picture, different industries? What else are we hearing and what trends are people talking about besides obviously the shortage of labor?
Yeah.
Including.
Yeah. I know a lot of places, people I've talked to. A couple things that pop to mind. One, obviously the whole idea of Zoom and, having workforces, a lot of places they stayed remote, and that's just bringing about a whole new set of challenges to my employment attorney for me here is also on the SRA board as well. And as she said, I never thought I would get to my point in my career where I'm writing policies of how to behave in your house, what to wear when you're on a Zoom meeting, what's appropriate, things to do on a Zoom meeting, just because whoever thought this would be a thing. So Zoom, I think technology, that's been a big thing as well. For a lot of places too, COVID continues to wreak havoc. And I know there continues to be workforce shortages. My vice president, for example, she's a VP at a local chain of banks, and she is constantly playing the shuffle game based on who's out with COVID, this, that, or the other, moving people around, closing branches. So I know for a lot of people that I'm talking to, it's, they're open today, they're not open tomorrow. Then they're half hours here, trying to deal with customers who are getting upset because nothing is normal right now, and just trying to, deal with that. Something we've also been talking about at SRA too right now is there is a big focus on mental health and wellness. And trying to be there for employees. We have an EAP trying to stay on top of employees because COVID, I've seen the best of people in COVID. We've seen the worst of people in COVID. Now you're talking about COVID issues. Everyone knows someone who's been affected. They either had it, someone's passed away, whatever it might be. You're dealing with the financial issues and impacts that are going on. We're now facing World War III. It is just crazy. And I was talking, somebody from our EAP basically was saying, please continue to pass out our cards. Please continue to work with your managers, looking for signs of depression or signs of people not well. The phone's ringing off the hook at the EAPs right now because people are at the point of just they can't process anything else right now. And that's a huge one. That's a huge one for a lot of companies across the industry, across the board right now, of all different industries. They're really just dealing with the psychological ramifications. We're no exception. I mean, COVID in a nursing home, high stress, high burnout, all of that. But even before COVID even hit our building, when, back in 2020, I had a young LNA who committed suicide as a result. And then having to deal with that, and deal with the staff who then, feels that they're at fault because they missed the signs, they didn't see it, or whatnot. I think for anyone who's in managerial or HR positions, especially, we're also talking about the appropriate self-care for ourselves. We have had to become, prosecution, defense, counselor, you name it, in the past couple of years, especially. And every day we're getting hit with more and more stuff trying to hold our respective, staffs and places of employment together. So our April program is actually going to be taking our topic is actually going to be kind of doing like some health, wellness, and self-care for the HR professional, with the realization that we cannot take care of others if we're not taking the time to take care of ourselves.
Thanks. There was a question in the chat from Warren. Are there organizations through SHRA that businesses can work with on the access to labor issue we've identified as a major business problem?
I'm trying to think if there's a specific. So Warren, can you just kind of drill down a little bit? I mean, are you looking for businesses or specific places to work that, just to help with shortages, or is there something specific you're looking for in that question?
Oh, we've identified at the SBDC that this is a problem. We've come up with solutions, and we're looking for professionals in the industry to refer clients to, because we have referral. We refer clients to the public and private sectors in all different areas of expertise, all different industries. So we've identified the problem. We've identified solutions. So I didn't know if there was anybody through Seacoast HR Association that you're the president of, correct?
Yep.
That would be able to work with clients on a contractual basis.
Yeah, I mean, there are some people that are members of SHRA that are what we call vendor members. We have some staffing agencies, consulting agencies, stuff like that are members that members have hooked up with before to be able to kind of help in some of those issues. We also have, for every meeting we do, we also have a program sponsor. And these are, could be companies or businesses like you're referring to that come in. They're paying essentially to sponsor the meeting, but in turn, they get to present at the meeting as well, about who they are, what they can do to help. And they can get, obviously get hooked up with people that way as well. I'm not thinking of, right at the moment, I'd have to go back and look, specific businesses are popping in my head. But I mean, other than the generic, this is what we do and what we have. We don't necessarily have, we have resources we can find based on different people involved in SHRA. That's kind of one of the benefits of networking, when somebody works in a specific industry, specific area, that we can kind of line each other up or make those connections. So I don't know if that answers your question or not.
This is sort of along the same lines, but a lot of us here on this call, we work with really small businesses, 1, 2, 3 people, even that don't have the capacity to have an HR person on board. So I was just wondering what some of the resources in the HR world that you know of are that businesses could tap into in those cases, for those really small businesses that don't have the capacity. Yeah.
I know there are some businesses in the area. I know There are some HR consulting firms. I know like Letty Consulting comes to mind. I believe there's a KW, I believe, I can't forget what the last KW, I forget what the last part of it is. There are a few places like that do help with those HR kind of issues. Where they can consult and or potentially assign somebody or whatnot. There's also a lot of unique tools now which are coming in a lot of your HR payroll systems. So depending on what people have as well, you know, you can get like the kind of that HRIS system as part of your payroll piece, which has everything from, you know, templates to documents to, you know, tracking tools, evaluations, and all of that. One of the biggest benefits out there right now is the, other than getting yourself plugged into something like SHRA, there's different, I believe there's 7 different chapters all throughout the state based on region. So anybody, you know, depending where your location is, you're able to get connected into the chapters. The chapters for your state chapters then essentially meld into what's called the state council, where there's a state council and then all of the chapter presidents serve on that as well, which then essentially funnels up into SHRM, which is Society for Human Resource Management, which is the overarching HR society in America. It's kind of the big one, actually worldwide. If you're a member of SHRM, I think it's $250 a year. There are tons of resources through SHRM as well. There's volunteer, you know, leader kits. There's hundreds of templates, documents. So somebody who's starting out in HR and needs to do something, that would be one of my biggest things would be, you know, to get yourself plugged into a SHRM membership, because you can basically go and say, hey, I need a employee handbook, I need a drug policy, I need whatever. You can basically Google that in and you're coming up with templates and downloads and tons of things. So that would be kind of some of my areas for people that are smaller and starting. It also depends on what you have for insurance brokers. For example, my insurance broker has a big HR component to it with an HR department. So when I first took over HR, as I said, I came into nothing. There was nothing set up. I was fortunate that my father had done HR at a corporate level, at a national level. So there was a lot of phone calls to dad saying, this is the situation, what should I do? What should I have? But my HR or my broker had an HR component, and I actually had the HR person. She came down a couple different times and she would spend the day with me, kind of going through some policies and what I needed, did reviews of my personnel files, helped me set up some systems that I still use today. So sometimes you may have resources that are already embedded in what you have. But again, I would say somebody that's, you know, kind of that, you know, 2 or 3, you don't have to have an HR degree or be an HR professional to be a part of something like SHRA. You know, anybody's welcome to join. And if you say, hey, I'm doing some HR, by all means, you know, come get connected, because sometimes we can pair you up with somebody and say, look, I'm new to HR, who's maybe in my industry that I could talk to and kind of give me some guidance. As well. And again, we try to make all of our programs relevant to what's going on, whether it's a legal update, whether it's, you know, a COVID update, something that, you know, the goal for us is when people leave our meetings, there's some sort of a takeaway they can take with them, something practical they can go back to the office and implement, you know, just to kind of help out.
Thanks, Todd. Just going back to something that we had already talked about before, I know that you mentioned some of the bonuses that you work on, but what are some of the hiring initiatives that you see are working for that workforce attraction, and what are some of the ones that are not working?
Yeah. I think one of the things that's working, and I have to speak, and this is not necessarily for me, being in healthcare, I'm really locked. You can't work from home. You have assigned shifts and schedules that you have to do because we're here 24/7, 365. So, you know, so we're kind of locked into what what it is we have to do. I know for a lot of places, we've talked about that, obviously, remote work, there are people that do like the remote work piece of it and that flexibility. Even before COVID hit, I think you're starting to see each generation leaves its own mark. The baby boomers were, a massive amount of, huge amount of the workforce, which is now in that retirement. Gen X, us, we still have very much a loyal component for Gen Xers and all of that. But as you start to get down to millennials, one of the big things millennials identified is they want that work-life balance. They're much more in tune with that. So I know a lot of places are trying to be more creative as far as schedules, as far as flexibility, as far as, maybe it's mom's hours, or maybe it's being able to, just kind of think outside of the box more creatively. I think, people that are having more luck with some, technology initiatives, I think that's big for the younger generation as well. I have seen, it's interesting, I have seen over my time doing HR that one thing that I wish I was as good at technology as the people that are coming up. But the flip side, the exchange is I know how to have a human conversation. And a lot of younger people don't. I can't tell you the amount of times it's probably, and from everyone I've talked to, they would probably agree with this number. It's probably at least 50% or more of the time that you have an interview that the interviewee does not show up. Or you go ahead and you hire somebody and they don't show, and you do all the background paperwork and they don't show up for orientation. Or you go ahead and you do the full orientation with the employee and they never show up for day one. And at the end of the day, I find out they've taken another job, but they didn't have the skills to be able to make a phone call to say, I have taken another job, because that's confrontation for them. It's conflict for them, and they've lost those skills. So trying to, kind of bridge the gap a little bit on some of that, but, it's really kind of, I think it's thinking outside of the box. If money was no option, sure, I would probably try to do some more creative, maybe recruitment bonuses or things like that. Even though I don't think they had as much bang for the buck as somebody did, I really still think the biggest bang for your buck is trying to make sure that your staff currently is cared for and they feel respected and valued and treated well, because guess what? They're the ones that are going to be out talking to their friends saying, I work for company X and they treat me so well. And then suddenly someone's coming in because they heard, Susie was treated really well and they want in on that. We're trying to, think creatively of how you, run ads, so I'll run the same ad, we'll run the same ad for the same position, but I'll run it 2, 3, 4 different ways with different titles, just to try to see, does something resonate more with somebody else. Sometimes, I'll try to recruit with specific schedules versus saying full time, saying, hey, here's the schedule. So maybe they can see the pattern, or kind of beef up something, if I got someone coming in, if I have 12-hour shifts or whatever, or double shifts or whatever, saying, hey, work full time in 2 days, or something that someone's like, oh, I can be full time, get full benefits. I only have to work 2 days a week. Sweet. That works for me. I can go do what I want for 5. So trying to just kind of think how it works, and I honestly feel like what I try this week doesn't work next week. So it's just having to be flexible and constantly just think outside of the box. But the box keeps changing shape, so it's difficult.
It's true. I sort of going back to something you had talked about in your own career trajectory, I think everyone is aware or familiar with the process of either having a qualification but not having experience, and not being able to get in without experience, but not being able to get the experience without getting in conundrum. Are you seeing any sort of will pay you, you know, even if you don't have that experience. Are people sort of waiving that now? Is that one of the things people are using as initiatives?
Yeah, I think, you know, I certainly think in, you know, in different industries for sure. I think that people are, you know, I've heard before, you know, you can, you know, hire on personality, train for skill, kind of a thing. So I think a lot of times, you know, if you've got people that are coming in the door that are, I mean, I take myself as an example. I did not have any HR experience when I was given HR. But my boss at that point had the confidence you can learn HR because you've got a lot of the other stuff going on as far as, you know, leadership instincts, you know, skill, you know, education, whatever it might be. I know for us in healthcare, I'm kind of locked in some ways because I have to have nurses or licensed staff, LNAs or whatever, but we have done things before too that, for example, in assisted living, you can run with what's called the PCA or the personal care assistant. They don't have to be licensed. So we have before basically advertised for those positions and said, come on board as a PCA and I will pay to get you your LNA license. We have before, I've taken LNAs. There's also what's called like a medication nursing assistant. And they are LNAs that have taken additional coursework, but they are allowed to then go ahead and provide medications, administration management to residents, which is often a nurse function because they have the specific skill set to do that. We've identified LNAs that will be good MNAs. We have put them through M&A school. To kind of get them that next step because it benefits them for growth for them. It benefits us. It's a huge help for us. So we have done, I've also taken, you know, other people in my place of employment, whether it's housekeepers, dietary aides, anything like that, that have identified, hey, I'm interested in becoming a nurse or becoming an LNA or whatever. If they're already working for me, we have worked to kind of put them through some of the training and some of the programs as well. You know, for that, you know, and some of the positions, you know, we've advertised before, it's like, hey, you know what, for some of the ones that don't require a license, whether it's maintenance, whether it's activities, whether it's, you know, dietary housekeeping, you know, business offices, you know, stuff like that, you know, absolutely. You do not have to necessarily have worked in healthcare. I will absolutely train you if it's the right fit. So, yeah, we have done stuff like that. I know a lot of other places do that as well.
I think that's it for our questions, but I don't know if the group has any additional questions for Todd.
Seeing
Okay.
none. All right. Well, Todd, thank you so much. This was a great conversation, and I guess it never occurred to me before that, you know, running the same job description, you know, in like multiple postings at the same time was even something to think about, you know, whether you might get different applications.
Yeah, and you just
That's
never,
really fascinating.
yeah, and you just never know. Like the biggest example I can think of for me is like dietary. People working in the kitchen, and I think everyone would agree, hospitality took a huge hit. Name me one restaurant right now that doesn't have a sign up saying, please be patient, our service may be slower, you know, because they just don't have enough time. And so, you know, we're having trouble again, you know, it's kind of the hospitality of us finding those workers. So I've run ads before as dietary workers, healthcare servers, dining room servers, food service worker, kitchen help, you know, whatever it is, just sort of see what resonates with somebody. Because somebody may not know what a dietary aid is, but they may grasp onto the fact of like, you know, a healthcare server may make more sense to them. I think, oh, that's really helping somebody who needs help with food, you know, or whatnot. So I think sometimes just like having the ability, and I'm lucky, you know, we use Indeed and all that sort of stuff. I also use a program right now, a platform called Workable, which feeds into a lot of other job boards as well. So I'm basically paying right now like a yearly fee, but what it's giving me is unlimited postings, which is allowing me to post a bunch of ads different ways, and I'm not being charged for each ad that I'm doing, which could be very costly. So yeah, so I mean, try that if you're having trouble. Sometimes it feels like it's a win. Other times it's okay. What new words can I figure out this week? You know, but yes, I mean, try that.
Great. Thank you so much. This was a great conversation. We are coming up on 10 o'clock, so I think we'll start to wrap up. In the agenda this morning, I had a couple other things that were more as reminders and notes of things to come. If you are covered by REDC's Economic Development District, I think their project solicitation for this year's CEDS update was supposed to wrap up on Friday. So if you have something that you didn't communicate to Jen Kimball, try and get a hold of her as soon as possible. If you are in SRPC's Economic Development District, so Stratford County or Brookfield Wakefield, we are just starting our project solicitation. So if you have things that are economic development related, you should have gotten an email from us probably by yesterday. I think I might have one or two that I still need to catch up. We are hoping to have those back by the 28th of March to keep our planning process going. So let us know if you have any questions about that. And then I've got a schedule of the upcoming agendas that we have tentatively scheduled up into the middle of April. So take a look at those. If you have ideas or thoughts about conversation topics or future guests, please shoot them my way. And Todd, I see put his contact information in the chat. We'll also make sure to get that in the call notes when we send it around. So Todd, thank you again for being here and for your time. This was great. Anybody have anything else for the group before we go? All right, seeing none, everybody have a great week. We'll see you next week.
Thanks all. Thanks, Todd.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.